Some time ago, when I was on the Poison Tour and I did a legend tripping video about the Phantom Killer in Texarkana, Texas, I had no idea that my whole channel would wind up being about legend tripping. There was a movie about this in 1971, loosely based on the murders. I'm gonna go on the motorcycle to where the very first murder was committed. So here we are at the end of 2019, and I want to do a quick little roundup of all the videos I've done about legend tripping. So let's get started. I am Rikki Rockett. I am known as the drummer for Poison, but I love riding around on my motorcycle, in a car, whatever, and investigating urban legends. If you haven't subscribed, please consider. If you like this video, hit the like button, and please turn on your notifications so when I upload, you'll be the first to know. I started the year off with the Mary tree, or what I call the Tree of Death, and it is a tree that sort of acts as a memorial to the dead. So guys, this is what I call the Tree of Death. Some people might call it the Tree of Life. I guess I'm negative. I hope not. Although I've seen prayers and wishes there too, or maybe some of the sick, but this tree looks like the Virgin Mary, and that's why it's called the Mary tree. Sometimes up to 200 people a day will come by that tree and put flowers down or pray to it. A lot of that tree has been chopped down, some of the branches have been cut off, but the Virgin Mary still is there, and I want you to take a look at that video because that's how I started the year off. Since I am in Southern California and there's a lot of history here, I decided that I might as well take a look at some local stuff. So in Sand Canyon, there's a beautiful road that has a really, really horrible past where people have been killed and there's been reports of hauntings there. The car suddenly spun out of control and crashed into a tree at the corner of Sand Canyon Road and Warm Springs Drive. The only girl in the car begged for help but could find no one to help her, and she finally died at the scene. Today, that area is said to be haunted. People have reported that a young woman runs through the trees with her face and body badly injured, looking for help, and then disappears into the night. This is the story of the ghosts of Sand Canyon. Back in 1916, there was an unsolved murder, and that murder was committed right near Magic Mountain. That house has since been relocated to a historic district, and I got to go right up to the house. Margaret died sometime that day between the mid-morning and early afternoon hours. She was 38 years old. Her cause of death was listed as a gunshot wound to the left breast. According to the news story, the weapon was a rifle. She passed away inside the ranch home on their bed. In the afternoon, a servant discovered the dead body in the room. The rifle was nearby. This is the mysterious killing of Margaret Routledge. Along Highway 126 going to Ventura, there is the tale of the lady in white, and she appears to passing cars, and she wears this flowing dress, and she's immortalized along this road because apparently she was hung in a tree. Little is known about the history of the lady in white on Route 126 near Fillmore, California. An apparition appears close to a lone sycamore tree found at the end of Sycamore Road, where it meets the highway. She has often appeared faceless, floating mere inches off the ground, and yet other times appearing completely human-like, even hitchhiking and entering a vehicle, only to disappear partway through the ride. What really happened to me there was very bizarre. Did something try to strangle me? Take a look at this video. A horribly burned man in Ojai, California supposedly haunts a bridge. That bridge is known as the Charman Bridge, and this legend persists to this day. We drove to Ojai, went on this bridge, and called out on the bridge. We are under the bridge right now, literally underneath the bridge. There's also another story that goes along with this, and that is a man that had very bad skin cancer, and this was in the mid-60s. He would only take walks at night, walk his dog at night, go out in the early morning hours, and sometimes people would catch a glimpse of him and get scared. Have a look and see what happens. There's a dairy in Santa Paula, and that dairy is called the Billy Whack Dairy, and there's a legend of the Billy Whack monster where it had some crazy history. A tall humanoid lurks in the area. He's a supposed remnant from a World War II experiment. There have been reports, especially in the late 60s, of motorists and students from the area and from a nearby high school being attacked, and their vehicles being attacked and damaged while they were parked and when they were moving. So come along with me and check out the legend of the Billy Whack monster. In 1890, a woman was murdered in her hometown of Acton, California. And in Acton, California, that was gold rush country. This is an unsolved murder. So her grave plot is right up on a mountain that you can go to. So we go up with EMF meters. As you can see, this is the grave plot of Harriet Farmer, or Hattie Farmer, and it's well preserved.
There was a lot of, it was the Wild West. It was the Wild West. We can solve this mystery. You can really rest in peace.
And we go through the town and meet up with some historians and try to find out what actually happened that day. That was the Hattie Farmer murder. In a private cemetery along Route 126 going towards Ventura, there's a coffin, and in that coffin there is a skeleton, and you think, well, yeah, okay, it's broken, you can look in, you can see the skeleton, only the body was supposed to have been removed from it a long time ago.
His wife passed away. She was buried in Los Angeles, and supposedly they exhumed him and buried him with her. However,
they say on certain nights that you can see shadowy figures hiding behind the gravestones. You can hear children laughing.
Crypt has collapsed, and you can see a couple of coffins inside with some remains in there.
So who is in that coffin? One of the most disturbing stories that I've ever come across was the Camp Scott murders, which happened in Oklahoma, and this happened in the 70s. There were 3 girls that were horribly murdered, and it really hits home to me because I have a little girl 6 years old. Denise Milner, Lori Farmer, and Michelle Goose were murdered between the hours of 2 and 4 o'clock on June 13th, 1977. They were wrapped up in their sleeping bags. What ensued was a huge manhunt that lasted almost 10 months. This case was classified as solved when they found Jean Leroy Hart. He had raped 2 pregnant women years earlier. They were pretty sure, based on several different pieces of evidence, that Jean Leroy Hart was the man that they were after. But this isn't just an unsolved murder. There is some heavy legend that goes along with this. Well, as the legend part of this would have it, that he went to a Cherokee medicine man and hired him to put a hex on these dogs. Actually, 2 of them did die, and it is unsolved. So take a look at a 2-part series called The Camp Scott Murders. In the summer of 2008, a 23-year-old Christine Walters was found standing bloody on a doorstep near her home in Arcata, California, which she had gone to for the summer. And she said that demons were chasing her through the forest. She begged the homeowner for help. The homeowner did call the police and an ambulance, and she was taken to a nearby hospital. She was confused and frightened and kept trying to convince everybody that she was being followed and somebody was after her. She failed to contact her parents in Deerfield, Wisconsin on the 17th when she was expected home. And there are drugs involved. Christine Walters has never been found. This is the mysterious disappearance of Christine Walters. Let's have a look at that case. The remains of a once beautiful resort and restaurant are set back in San Francisco Canyon and had burned down not once, but twice. And I went there one time and took a look around and I went, what the hell happened here? So I did a little research, and what I found out is going to blow your mind. And I also got attacked by bees. When the St. Francis Dam broke on March 12, 1928, it took between 400 and 600 lives. And even now, nobody knows exactly why it collapsed. But is it haunted? Is that whole area haunted? Because there is a grave site right by it. Let's take a look. One of the most famous haunted houses in the world is the Villisca Axe Murder House, which happened in Villisca, Iowa. June 10th, 1912, 2 adults and 6 children were found brutally murdered in their beds.
The Villisca Axe murders would baffle law enforcement for over a century. On June 10th, 1912, the Moore family was sleeping peacefully in their beds. Joe and Sarah Moore were asleep upstairs while their 4 children were resting in a room down the hall. In a guest room on the first floor, there were 2 girls, the Stillinger sisters, who had come for a sleepover. Shortly after midnight, a stranger entered the unlocked door and stole an oil lamp from a nearby table. In his other hand, he held an axe.
And there's a lot more to the story than just that. Wait until you hear the details of this one. Then we take a look at one of the most haunted houses in the world, and that is the Amityville house. This is a 2-part because you have the murders. On November 13th, 1974, the police were notified that there was a homicide at 112 Ocean Avenue, and they discovered 6 members of the DeFeo family dead. The father, the mother, and the 5 children. They were shot and killed execution style. Their surviving son, Ronald Butch DeFeo Jr., who was only 23 years old at the time, was eventually charged and tried for the murder of his family. And then you have the haunting.
The Lutz family moved into the previously DeFeo-owned Amityville house. It was only 13 months after the DeFeo murders. The day before they moved in, a Father Picorero arrived to bless the family's new home. He heard voices saying, "Get out." Day 1, the Lutzes said that they had felt strange sensations, and soon the family's personality drastically changed. Bizarre odors like the stench of bile and the smell of cheap perfume. Black stains appeared on the toilets and could not be lifted even with Clorox bleach. Green slime ran down the walls. The swarms of flies continued in the dead of winter. A crucifix was turned upside down. Kathy Lutz was grabbed by unseen beings. George would wake up nightly at 3:15 a.m. That's the time it was believed than when the DeFeos were actually killed.
And they are two very distinct things that need to be presented in two very distinct ways. So have a look at that. Let us not always trust the claims of science. There are loopholes, and scientists are no stranger to those loopholes. So it is possible that what we know about the universe is not really wrong, but maybe it's just incomplete. Have you ever wondered, are ghosts real? You know, it's always awesome when you can take the kids on a train ride, an old style train. So we went to Santa Paula and we did just that. And then we stayed at the Glen Tavern Inn. The Glen Tavern Inn is over 100 years old. And we did a little bit of ghost chasing that night. It is one of the most amazing hotels I've ever stayed at, but it has a very, very, very haunted past. We meet a couple there that's also convinced that there's restless spirits.
She opened the door for me. She came in and she said there were two kids jumping like up on the side of the bed, but not on the bed, but just above the bed jumping or yelling or something. And I was like, oh, okay.
Let's take a look. Ever wonder who the hell is Satan? Satan is very much interwoven into the fabric of not just our society, but societies around the world. What about real world organizations and cults? The actual Church of Satan was founded by Anton Szandor LaVey in 1966. And if the Church of Satan wasn't enough, 6 years ago, a couple of guys, Lucien Greaves, the organization's spokesperson, and Malcolm Jarry, formed the Satanic Temple in Salem, Massachusetts. Like the Church of Satan, they painted their headquarters black. I take a look at this very touchy and controversial subject. Who the hell is Satan? Are some urban legends just people that didn't fit into society and then they're ousted and they're made fun of? Who was Charlie No Face? It turns out the Elephant Man is not the only tragic persona in history like this. The story behind Charlie No Face is really a guy who really was dealt a shitty deck of cards. But they're not really bad people in the first place, and they become an urban legend. And over the years, rumors that he had died from being hit, that he ran around haunting the area, and that story began. But those stories of his death were totally untrue. We take a look at Charlie No Face, and Charlie was not a bad guy, but he got a really bad rap. Nestled in the heart of Hollywood is Ripley's Believe It or Not Museum. It's right in the middle of Hollywood, and in there are relics from the past. Wow, what a trip this place is. And they are surrounded by spooky stories and shrunken heads. This was a person.
Without telling...
I cannot imagine that at least some of those relics carry around some evil forces. The body under the bed. The legend of Hook Hand. These are some of my favorite urban legends, so I take the top 5 urban legends and roll them into one episode so that we can go around and get an idea of what some of my favorite ones are that made me want to do this channel in the first place. Let's have a look. Lauren Parker from TAPS and I got contacted by one of the people that was not the owner of the Billywhack, but his grandfather and uncle were. So he had spent many, many, many days at the Billywhack Ranch when he was younger and had a lot of information and just was brimming over with excitement to tell us about it.
They were defense contractors. They helped invent and build the infrared system for the U-2 spy plane there, okay? But what's ironic, my grandfather's best friend split from Hughes. He started a little company called Santa Barbara Research Center.
So we went to see Mike and we sat down and talked about the Billywhack Dairy, the Billywhack Monster, Howard Hughes, and all the weird stuff surrounding that place. Let's have a look at that one. Suicide is a serious issue, not just today, it always has been, but it seems like there's been a lot more. When I went to check out the Pasadena Suicide Bridge, it was to check out the haunted past of this bridge. Over 150 people have committed suicide on this bridge, and I wanted to know why. But what I found out, the more important message was, if you are considering suicide, you need to get help. Let's take a look at the Pasadena Haunted Bridge. Well, that pretty much wraps up this video. In case you haven't heard, Poison is going on the road with Motley Crue, Def Leppard, and Joan Jett. And I get to go all around this country and do what I love to do, and that's see things, meet people, play for people. But I'm also going to get to do these videos, so make sure that you subscribe and hit your notification button so that you know when I upload, because I will be uploading from the road. I'm going to have a blast doing this. I'm coming to your town. So until then, take care of each other, and don't forget to keep rock alive.